Recording is in progress now. Welcome to another Community Issues Forum for Christ Church Cathedral. We're still doing them by Zoom. By the new year, maybe we'll be doing a combination of Zoom and back at the cathedral. And we're still involved very much in the issues that face us as voters this fall. And today, Great Parks Levy and what that's going to provide us.
Well, thank you, Bill. Thank you to the forum for allowing me to be here today. I have a presentation, so I'm just going to go ahead and screen share.
Sure.
There we go. I have a handful of slides and a lot of information. I think what I'll do is I'll run through it. Glad to take questions along the way, but I also can't see everyone. So if someone's raising their hand, I won't be able to see them. So maybe I'll get to the end, stop screen sharing, and then jump back in for any questions. Happy to stop along the way. Some quick facts about the parks. I like to tell my audience a little bit about, because a lot of things in the community where people might get confused about our agency. We are a political subdivision of the state of Ohio, and our governance is through Ohio Revised Code section 1545. We were formed in 1930 by Mayor Season Good as the then Hamilton County Regional Park District. So we are 91 years old. Our governance is the Board of Park Commissioners, with this, which is the same for all park districts in Ohio. 5 Board of Park Commissioners who are appointed by the probate judge of Hamilton County. That could be 3 or 5. We have 5. 83% of our land is preserved. So park districts were originally created to be a preservation of green space and to protect public land. Our policy dictates that we preserve 80%, and we're happy to be at 83. But it's a very important part of what we do. And I think a lot of people, we do have a lot of parks, a lot of recreation, but our sole purpose and our core is conservation. We are the largest landowner in Hamilton County. Our current approved budget for 2021 was $38.7 million. And we typically would, at peak season, have about 1,000 employees, but this year, with still experiencing some outfall from COVID, as well as the competitiveness of wages, we only had about 800 total on staff, and about 200 of those are full-time. Everybody else would be a part-time, non-benefited employee. And this is our footprint. So this is a map of Hamilton County. You can see all 22 parks and nature preserves. I emphasize the 22 because just a couple of months ago, we were 21. But if you didn't know, we were happy to announce that we acquired the Work Road property, which is the former Gamble House estate in Westwood. And we were able to purchase that property with Clean Ohio Conservation Funds and a 25% matching donation from the Green Acres Foundation. And so we have officially closed. It is now ours, and we are working on community input to see what the future of that park looks like going forward. A lot of people ask about in the city, and why don't we show a lot of parks on your maps in the city? So this is a snapshot of really the core of the city of Cincinnati. That darker taupe tan area is the city limits. And the city, between the Park Board and the Recreation Commission, has over 5,000 acres of parkland. So Great Parks has a lot of involvement, though, in the city. So Fernbank Park, which is on the west side to your left on the map, and Otto Armleader Park on the east side are both Cincinnati parks, but Great Parks has leased and operated those since 2003 and will continue to do so going forward. So we run those as if they're our parks, and Fernbank is actually our 5th busiest park of the 22 parks. The Work Road property I just mentioned. I do want to call attention to Nature Center at the Summit. That is a cooperative venture with Pastor Lynch and New Prospect Baptist Church. We lease a 6-acre camp and have been running nature programs out of that camp. And we have a nature center inside the facility, and it's staffed. And it's been a great outreach for the residents of Roselawn. It's kind of a new model that we are exploring and want to move forward, which is a way to get into urban communities, but not have to have a giant piece of parkland. And then the final thing I want to note on this slide is Great Parks is currently building the Beachmont Connector, which is an $8 million bridge over the Little Miami Scenic River that will extend the Little Miami Scenic Trail to the Lunken Loop and eventually connect through the Oasis Trail to downtown Cincinnati. Great Parks, SORTA, and the city of Cincinnati have signed an agreement with Indiana Ohio Railroad to do the Oasis Trail. So the funding has been secured for the easement, and the city is going to take the lead on building the trail, and then Great Parks will maintain the trail. So we'll eventually be maintaining the trail, including Lunken, from Sawyer Point all the way to Terrace Park. So a couple questions to answer. The why now? So Great Parks has been going through a very thorough planning process over the last several years. I've been with the agency for 18 years. Been in the planning role my entire career up until I became the CEO in May of 2019. So I was a part of all these planning processes. The 10-year critical infrastructure needs was a big part of our ask. We determined a need of over $101 million in critical infrastructure. So things like utilities, roads, bridges, dams, maintaining natural resources are in that need. We also developed our first comprehensive master plan, which was adopted by the board in 2019, and then went into a series of park-specific planning, which just wrapped up in May and was adopted by the board this summer, which is a specific look at each park and nature preserve in our system, which generated plans for new improvements or other project and facility related cost. We also worked with the Philanthropic Advisory Committee. So we reached out to the private community who's helped us develop a fundraising plan that'll be a part of our ask. And then worked with the government affairs team at the chamber with Brendan and Katie Egan from the chamber. They recruited 16 volunteer members from the community who worked with us, looked at our business model, and it helped us address a lot of tough questions and really helped us get over the hump of determining the final need, which I recommend to the board this summer. And another reason why now is giving you a quick history. I won't read through all the numbers, but our first levy was passed in 1945. Like I said, we've been around since 1930. And since 1988, we've continued to operate off the same 1 mil levy amount. However, we've grown significantly in that amount of time and feel that when we went to the voters in 16, the board knew that we would need to come back before the 10 years and make some type of an adjustment, which is why I made a recommendation to the board for the new levy that's on the ballot this November. And these are a lot of the points that a lot of people ask. This information is available on our website, greatparks.org. We have a levy page, but I wanted to walk you through really quick. So on the left in the blue is our current levy, which was voted in 2016, is effective 17 to 26. It is a 1 mil levy. However, its effective rate is 0.87 mil. So we only earned 1 mil in the first year of the levy, which is very typical for most levies. The effective rate goes down. It never goes above the voted amount, but it'll always float down based on property valuations as well as delinquencies and other factors. That currently is costing $30.43 per $100,000 value on a residential property, generates about $20.6 million per year in tax revenue. If we only proceeded forward with that levy, it would only fund 3% of the critical infrastructure, which I just mentioned, and only 2% of park improvements going forward. For November, the board has placed an additional 0.95 mil levy on the ballot. That would be a 10-year term from 2022. And that would be a separate levy. So it would be 2 levies on 2 different 10-year terms. The auditors let us know that in January of 22, that would be $33.25 per year based on 100,000. So about $64 a year per 100,000 total for both levies. And that would generate in its first year approximately $21.2 million. That would allow us then to fund 76% of our infrastructure and 56% of our park improvement. And the reason I noted at the bottom, the percent of our budget is that at 55% tax revenue, we've always been one of the lowest in the state. majority of the larger park districts and metropolitan park districts are between 75 and 85% on tax revenue, just in terms of their operational budget. And was my goal with the board, was to get us to that point to be able to sustain further going forward. And one thing that we were able to help reduce our levy ask was, I mentioned the Philanthropic Advisory Committee. They made a recommendation that to reduce the tax burden, that we develop a $50 million 10-year capital plan. So that is part of our plan going forward. So that will be another bucket of funding, and that will be launched in 2022. And thanks to a lot of folks who volunteered their time and served on a committee and made this endorsement to our board this summer, before the board made their decision about a levy amount. And then to further break down the 76 and 56% on the infrastructure, it's about $76 million that we will spend over the next 10 years. And I won't read through all these, but that just gives you an idea on the types of projects. When I mentioned infrastructure, we're a lot like a city. Geographically, we cover the entire county, and we have over 250 miles of property boundary to manage and maintain. And so these are all the areas that we would prioritize spending that money over the next 10 years. And there's a few project examples there to the right that we would address early in the levy process. And then on the master plan side, or the park improvement side, these are the list of priorities that I had presented to the board. These are very categorical, but they're all over the park system, and they fall under really three main areas: conservation, architectural new buildings, and then site specific park improvements. And kind of what that looks like is this list here, project priorities. This is a great sampling of priorities that we will have early in our 10-year cycle. For instance, I want to point out the revitalized harbors. If you've been to any of our parks, Sharon Woods, Winton Woods, and Miami Outdoor Forest are our three busiest parks, and the harbors are the busiest amenities in those parks, and they are showing their age, and there are a lot of needs for replacements and upgrades in those areas. So that is one way that we would be able to impact a large amount of guests by providing upgrades at those three harbors. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is just where we are in terms of support. So I've had meetings with the Cincinnati Business Committee and the Cincinnati Regional Business Committee, and seen great support from both those groups. We did receive an endorsement from the Government Affairs Executive Committee at the Chamber. You may have seen that. We also been endorsed by the Cincinnati Area Board of Realtors. Hamilton County Democratic Party has endorsed both issue 1 and issue 29, and we will be on the sample ballots in all the city precincts, which we're very excited about having that help from the Democratic Party. A Green Umbrella has endorsed the Ohio Environmental Council Action Fund, Cardinal Land Conservancy, and Crown, which, if you're not familiar, is the Cincinnati Riding and Walking Network that is raising private funds, millions of dollars in private funds, to build a 34-mile trail system in the city. And Great Parks has several trail projects within the Crown's jurisdiction, or the Crown's limits. So that is all my talking points. I would love to take questions.
Plus calls in 2020, we